phone call from the deputy governor, and on the left is a list of the steering committee. Beyond this group of people that you see on the left, we also had 10 separate subcommittees, as well as a public engagement committee and marketing and communications committee. And I believe we counted at one point, we had well over 100 people working among these committees. And you can imagine how many silos that we all represented within that. So how do you bring together that many people and that many communities to address your common challenges? And what you've really got to do is, one, agree that the mission of regionalism, of putting region first, is an important one. And then you've really got to plan and create a vision. And our vision for this team of people was to create great hometowns. That specifically seems so very simple, but when you look at the challenges in each of these hometowns, some of those were common to the region, some of them were specific to a community, but all of us knew that the overall arching goal is to make our communities better and create great hometowns. How did we do that? And what specifically did we focus on? We decided that we needed to improve quality of life across our region and within each of our communities. So we built out not only this strategic investment plan to go after stellar dollars, but we also developed what's called the quality of life plan. And that drove the vision toward creating great hometowns. In this picture, you can see the quality of life pillars that we developed our plan around. We wanted to create those great hometowns by getting quality spaces, by working on arts and culture in our region, housing, transportation and trails, the economy or economic development, if you will, entrepreneurship and industry, health and wellness, diversity and inclusion, education and skills, and also leadership development, creating future leaders to take on the type of work that we want to do to create great hometowns. So each of these pillars of our quality of life plan, all 10 of them, have a Marshall County Crossroads subcommittee working on very specific goals and objectives in each of those areas. And essentially, this was the plan we presented to the state officials who host stellar communities, and that would be the Office of Community and Rural Affairs, Indiana Housing Development Authority, DNR is also one of the constituents, and there's also Indiana Health Department and Economic Development. All of those different agencies bring money to what's called the Stellar Communities process. And the Marshall County Crossroads team took this quality of life plan along with several projects we wanted to come out of that plan and presented that to the state agencies. To get to this plan, each of the communities had representation. Several Marshall County organizations had representation. As you can see from that earlier slide, our Arts and Culture Committee had numerous artists from the region. Our Education and Skills Committee had every school superintendent working on that committee. Industry and Entrepreneurship had lots of economic development folks. Transportation and Trails had some of our park department folks working on that. We have a housing committee that brought some projects to the plan. So as you can imagine, to create this many subcommittees took a lot of people and a lot of work. We called this title of the presentation today, getting from silos to stellar really did have to happen at the speed of light. And what's really interesting to me about that is when you're dealing with a crisis like the flood in Plymouth or a pandemic like we've had to deal with, if you aren't prepared to go at the speed of light, then you're going to face some major challenges and not perform as well as you would like as a community, as a region. And so stellar communities occurs over a very short period of time. You turn in a letter of intent in April, and by October, you've turned in this massive regional development plan. So we had to work very quickly to do that. Thankfully, there were many things in place, some of which Linda alluded to, like the quarterly meetings that were already occurring between our communities. We'd already seen regional cities come to the area. So we leveraged the fact that we had all been already talking to each other to be able to work at this sort of speed. And in year one, we were not designated stellar, but in year two, as many of you have heard, we were designated stellar. And that brings about $8 million from the Office of Community and Rural Affairs. It brings $4 million from NDOT, which is Department of Transportation. It brings several million from IHCDA through tax credit housing projects. And of course, we also raised among many of our partners several hundreds of thousands of dollars to make matches on this particular grant. All of the communities have combined over $3 million into the plan as well, making matches. So this is over $20 million coming into Marshall County to solve some of the challenges that we face. Just to give you an idea of some of the projects, I thought I'd include a few here so that you could see some of what's taking place. This one is the Argus Downtown Square. There's, as many of you have probably seen, when you come to the main intersection of Main Street and Argus, there's a big empty lot that used to be a gas station. That particular square is now being designed to become an activated public space that will have a really interesting looking train depot building, a performance stage, areas for sitting and gathering, a farmer's market sort of space. And this is going to be a really exciting project for Argus because it'll bring people to downtown Argus, and it'll also give people in the community a great place to get together. This was this is a picture of Freeman's Main Street. They just completed a major NDOT project here, and part of this is going to be landscaped and built out through our Stellar Communities project. And off of this is Jackson Street project, which will be called a Flex Street project. It'll be a lot like the Argus Downtown project in that it'll create a gathering space. But this is a picture of Matt Van So's kids. Matt was the chair for our public engagement committee. And so Matt helped organize a lot of the events that took place in each of the communities as we engaged with people across Marshall County to figure out what they wanted us to do as well. There was lots of surveying going on throughout this process and lots of community conversations within the communities. So this is a project that you can already see has hit construction, and several of our Stellar Communities projects have hit that stage now. Each of our communities had a map like this that showed the proposed projects that we wanted to complete. And it also showed projects that were already going on in each of the communities. And so we were trying to give the state agencies a picture of how much activity would take place in each of the communities by our own undertaking, and also if they gave us the funds to do Stellar. This happens to be Plymouth's. A lot of their investment is around River Square Park, and relates to not only parks, but also trails. So they had a strong focus on quality of place in many of their projects. I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the work that's taking place as a result of this grant. So what became of all these silos and breaking them down was not only a stellar win for us, but it also showed us that regionalism can really help you meet the challenges of a community, and that working outside of those silos has so many benefits. And so our Marshall County Crossroads team, with that focus on our quality of life plan, said, hey, you know, just because we won stellar doesn't mean the work should stop. There's other opportunities out there. And in fact, there were with Lilly Gift, Regional Partnership Lift Network. And we know there are going to be future opportunities, many of which we've already jumped on. So our Marshall County Crossroads team created a nonprofit, and we have officers in that nonprofit. I sit as vice president of that committee, and Kevin Overmeyer is president. And we have a very strong group from the steering committee that did stellar, that still exists. Our subcommittees are still working hard on those quality of life initiatives. And we want to tell the world that just like other nonprofits that have learned how to collaborate, we will continue engaging with our communities as a collaborative nonprofit team, trying to bring our mission for quality of life in great hometowns to Marshall County from here on out. And even during a pandemic, this team has been working hard beyond the stellar designation. So I'm going to turn that back over to Linda so she can walk you through some of that work.
Thanks, Jenny. So yeah, so COVID hit last year, right about now. And it really changed everything for everybody. And we were no exception here at the Community Foundation and United Way. And as we watched what was happening as businesses were shutting down and the stay-at-home orders were in place, we had a donor reach out to us. It was John Oliver with US Granules called me one night. Actually, I think it started with an email about midnight on a Friday night. And John said, Linda, I can't sleep. He said, I drive past the food pantry and I see the lines of cars there. And we knew at that point, this is in early April, first week in April, we knew at that point this is going to have long-term impact for a lot of our families. Because we talk about our Alice families all the time. There's 12% of our population pre-COVID that was living in poverty. There's another 26% that live paycheck to paycheck, working hard, just having a hard time making ends meet. We call it ALICE. It stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. And right off the bat, this is from a study that has been conducted by Rutgers University for several years now since the recession. You know, how are people doing? Have they really recovered from the recession? What are the barriers? Again, affordable housing and affordable childcare, just some of them in Marshall County. Those reports get very specific. But if you think about that, we've said for years, those folks that are living paycheck to paycheck are just one accident, just one health issue, just one car repair away sometimes from a hard place. And what we really want to do is work at keeping folks that are living paycheck to paycheck from slipping into poverty, because once they get there, it's a hard climb up. So this is that big event for so many families across Marshall County, and that was weighing on everybody right at the start of this. And John was the first of our donors to recognize that this was going to have long-term impact and we had to do something. So his question was, Linda, how do we pull together the best fundraisers from across the county? And we had an immediate conversation about the Crossroads team because we've already formed relationships. We had 2 years of working intently together on quality of life issues in Marshall County. And because they all had connections within their communities to not only know where the needs were the greatest, but also to help identify folks that might be in a position to help. Because again, with so much uncertainty, how do you begin to do fundraising with that? So John not only came to the table with a question, he came with some possible solutions. And we, within a week, had him connected with Kevin Overmeyer. They're great friends. That was an easy connection. And then Sarah Smith on our United Way board, our board chair, our board president. And we had a conversation about what that would look like. And by April 16, the Crossroads team met via Zoom. And within a half hour of talking about what the issues were, what the projections were at that time, this team was already planning a major fundraising initiative. And they launched it officially with a virtual concert and a tour of the downtown, socially distanced, of course, on May 5th. And by June 30, they had raised over $524,000 in support for basic needs like food and rent and utilities and mental health issues and childcare support if needed. Because again, this is all new to everybody. We're all figuring this out. We sensed that those would be some of our greatest needs, but we knew that there may be some surprises along the way. So they, again, were very engaged in the process of getting a grants committee together. We had representatives from United Way Community Foundation and Crossroads, and that structure is still in place. And I'll tell you, it's going to be continue through the recovery as well, because we're still not through this yet. We still have work to do. So that is amazing. There are very few communities that I know of that can talk about that kind of success at that time period in particular. And then later on, when we hit November, we have been monitoring the news. Clearly, we were keeping in close contact with state organizations, looking for every outside funding opportunity that we could, because we knew those local dollars had to stretch. And in any disaster relief, you want to use any federal, state dollars that you can, because again, this was going to impact us all and for a long period of time. So, we have been staying in touch. We also were using Chad Towner's daily updates. Chad Towner is the CEO of St. Joseph Hospital Health Systems, and he started out sending daily updates early on to keep his own team informed. And then they asked if they could share with family because it contained basic information about, the infection rates in the county and the hospitalization rates and the death rates and things that were happening behind the scenes that we really didn't have any other way to know. So eventually those became opened up to the public. Now, if you can go onto the St. Joe Health System website and gain access to those, just a critical support. He started hosting town hall meetings. We helped organize that. We pulled in the Crossroads team again to hear what he had to say in November, especially when it became very scary for our region, for Marshall County, Elkhart County, St. Joe County. The numbers were really hard to see, and the projections were even harder to hear. So the message then was, we've got to get out there. There's so much political angst mixed in with this, but we just really need some basic information that we can grab onto here in Marshall County to help change the story. Because at that point we were talking about, hospitals with, those trucks in the parking lot for because they don't have capacity for the number of deaths, or people waiting to get into the emergency room in lines in the parking lot. Those are the kinds of things they were preparing for. It was getting very real. And so we launched the Take Charge campaign, and we asked people to do a number of different things. Social distance, yes. Wear masks, yes. Stay home when you can. But do those things that you can do to improve your own health, so that if you do get the virus, you have a better chance of fighting it. I mean, there was a whole website full of information about if you get symptoms, here's where you go to get help. It was just a really powerful community engagement process that the Crossroads team took on at that point. And I will have to say, I credit that team for having an impact and then turning those numbers around.
Especially Marty Eusteron.
Yeah, Marty Eusteron is the communications chair, and he and Carrie
Really took
yes,
us on.
yeah, they really did. Carrie
Pushed us all.
Yeah, with Red Door Marketing, they just did a fantastic job. So, and then some of the other things, there's a big event this weekend It's tomorrow night, I believe, right? At 7:30 at the Reese, they're gonna unveil their new electronic message board. And that's part of a project that will take place countywide. We talked about, getting access to state funds. There's COVID phase 2 funds that came in to support small businesses. And, we've been great at sharing information with each other. If we hear something that can be useful to childcare centers, we're pushing that out. We pushed out information about Lilly grants to youth serving organizations. We pushed out information to our Arts and Culture Committee because we knew that there were some funding opportunities for them as well. So it really is having a major impact through COVID-19 too. So one of the things that we found early on is that our Health and Wellness Committee, I'm going to focus on them for just a little bit. Our Health and Wellness Committee, as we started to build collaborations, we found out that Beacon Health System already had a planning grant of $50,000 to address substance use disorders in Marshall County. But working with us, they invited 45 other health care professionals to the table, law enforcement, other community partners to be part of that planning process. St. Joe Health System was fantastic in engaging with them through that. And now we have $1 million grant that just launched in September of last year that will be a 3-year period, and it's bringing much needed prevention, treatment, and recovery programs to Marshall County. That group is now pursuing an additional $1 million to work with employers to help connect. If they have an employee that has a substance use disorder and they recognize it, rather than letting them go, perhaps they'll give them a chance if they're connected with a support person associated with Project Hope. Project Hope is the substance use disorder. That's the group that's working with that grant. But they're expanding. They're looking at other granting opportunities, and that's one that's coming down the pike. A rural health project, we just found out that we are able to support through a $75,000 Stellar grant. A community health worker who is again going to work with emergency rooms, with law enforcement, first responders, faith-based organizations as they identify people in distress, that they can, with health issues, that they can connect them with the resources and support that they need. They use this model up in St. Joe County. I know during COVID-19, if they had somebody that came in and was COVID positive, not sick enough to be in the hospital, they were monitoring to see if they needed additional supports when they went home. Do they have the nutrition that they need? Do they have transportation? Or if they need to get to a doctor's appointment, do they have access to the medication that they need? That kind of wraparound support, very personal. But just this month, this same team is launching. We're securing sponsorships to pursue a Blue Zones community development and readiness assessments plan. Blue Zones is it's based on longevity studies in communities across the globe. It was first started by National Geographic. Dan Buettner, he's written several bestsellers about this, but it's really about looking at those communities to see why they're living longer and better. And so they've taken that, what they've learned from those communities, and they have now replicated it in 52 communities across the US. So we are having them come in, hopefully we'll be launching here in April, to do this community development and readiness assessment plan, because what we recognized is we've got a lot of great things going on, but we all need to have a framework where we have a comprehensive community-wide approach to addressing high obesity rates and high diabetes rates and the mental health issues that we have in the county right now. And quite frankly, we rank number 61 out of 92 counties in our county health rankings. And that's not something we want to see. We want to do better than that. We also know that we are losing ground as far as longevity is concerned. Every year for the last several, we lose another few months in our longevity rates. So we're pretty excited about the future. All of that to say is this isn't over. This is a journey. This is really pretty exciting to see what we've accomplished so far, but equally exciting to see what opportunities lie ahead.
Yeah, so hopefully you have seen how this team went from silos to stellar, and now the Crossroads team is headed in new and uncharted waters with our quality of life plan. So if you have any questions about any of all of it, let us know, or if you want to join a subcommittee and come work with us, we'd love to hear from you too. And I think Linda's going to take it off share now in case anyone wants to have a question, or we'll send it back to you, Sarah.
All right. Thank you so much. Ginny, you mentioned people getting involved in subcommittees or volunteering. So if someone was interested in that, how would they get involved?
Yeah, so if you go to our Marshall County Crossroads website, we have a way to get in touch with us through that website. You can send us a note, but you can also reach out to any one of us sitting on the steering committee or one of the subcommittees. You'll see our plans on that website. We also have social media pages, but if not, just reach out to me or Linda or Kevin Overmeyer or Sean Cerisi. Many of you have probably learned about the representatives in your communities or read some PR on this as well. There's so many of us working on it. You can ask just about anyone, and one of us will be able to give you a name of who to reach out to.
Excellent. If anyone else has a question, go ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to ask, or use the chat box if you don't have a microphone on your computer. Sandy Garrison says, great update on what's been going on. Very excited for the stellar projects that are coming. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Yeah. We've got about a minute. I'm not seeing any questions. All right, well, thank you ladies so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And yeah, just the collaboration between our communities is just so great, and we're so excited for what the future will hold.
Thank you, it's our pleasure.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, we're gonna go ahead and sign off. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and be on the lookout for next month for Kurt Garner's brown bag. On the more things change, the more they stay the same. Hope to see you guys next month.
Great, bye everyone.